Hi, and welcome to the Wise Women's Conversations podcast. I'm your host, Angela Council. And with a background as a naturopath, I thought I knew exactly what happened to women when they reached menopause until I experienced it myself. I then realised that there was so much more to this time of life than what was written in the textbooks. I decided it was time to bring this stage of life out of the closet and to have some open and honest conversations with women who are going through the same journey. Wise Women's Conversation has been created to share information and experiences from other wise women in our community. Sit back and listen to the wise women speak. Hi, and welcome back to this week's episode of Wise Women's Conversations. And for those of you who don't know me, I am your host, Angela Council. And this week, you've got me. And I thought what I'd do is I'd talk to you about how important the liver is in how you transition through your perimenopause and menopause stage of life. I'm going to share with you that the really important role that the liver is playing in whether or not you have symptoms or you don't have symptoms, whether or not you put on weight or if you don't put on weight. And I'll also share with you what you can do to ensure that your liver is functioning properly. So in this episode, we'll be talking about what the liver does, the role that it plays, particularly when it comes to hormones, how the signs of a sluggish liver or when your liver's not working as well as it could do, and some of the causes, what can cause a liver not to be working as well as we'd like it to be. And then I'm going to give you some tips of what you can do to support your liver so that it can function optimally. So let's start with what is the liver and why is it so important? Why do we really need to worry about what the liver is doing? So the liver is a large organ that sits kind of underneath your lungs in your body, and it's where everything, most people know that the liver detoxifies. So we think of a bit like a big garbage can. Everything goes into it. Then it's all cleaned up, and whatever we don't want is we get rid of, and we get rid of that through the bowels, and what we do want we keep and the body utilizes. So it's a bit like a really big recycling center is probably a really great way to describe it. So when it comes to the role that the liver plays within perimenopause and menopause, or even before that when we are cycling, the liver is where our reproductive hormones are metabolized and broken down. And if we don't require them any further, they're excreted. And if we do need them, well, then they're utilized by the body. So the liver plays a really big role in the signaling from the reproductive organs and making sure that our hormones stay in balance. It's also the place where we have, it stores glucose. So glucose that the body may be needing in the short term. So glucose is for our energy. So it's sugar. It gets stored in the liver. So it's plays a really big role in the metabolism of our blood sugar levels and keeping our blood sugar levels working well. And obviously it does also keep our body functioning well in that we clear out all the chemicals and toxins that our body doesn't work. Now, there's a couple of chemical processes that happen in the liver. I'm going to try and keep it a little bit simple. I'm not going into too much technical jargon with this, but if we think of the liver, it has two phases of detoxification. So a recycling center that has two sorts. So it has one sort and then it has a second sort. So we call this phase 1 detoxification and phase 2 detoxification. So in phase 1 detoxification, everything comes in and the liver starts to change a few things to make them easier to excrete or easier to be reused by the body. Now, in phase 1 detoxification, what comes out of that phase sometimes can be more toxic than what it was when it came in. But the liver's very, very clever. So it takes that toxic material and it puts it through phase 2 detoxification. Now, phase 2 is where everything is completely cleaned up. So, and it's either phase 2 takes it straight out to the bowels to be eliminated, or as I said, it uses it. So it takes the chemical byproducts of phase 1 and it decides what is going to be used and what's not going to be used. Now, for the liver to be functioning properly, phase 1 and phase 2 both need to be working really, really well. Unfortunately, for many, many people, phase 1 is running quite fast. So we're taking lots and lots of stuff in, and that's because of our diet, the toxins and everything. So a lot of stuff is coming into the liver, but phase 2 requires specific nutrients for it to function optimally, and many people are deficient in these nutrients, and zinc is one of those nutrients that the body requires to be able to detoxify in phase 2. And there's other nutrients as well, but zinc is a key one, and many people are deficient in zinc. So what we've got now is we've got a really fast running phase 1, which is producing a toxic outcome, and a phase 2 that's quite sluggish. So as you could imagine, it means that the body isn't clearing out as much as it needs to via the bowels. And for those people who've got sluggish bowels, so that they tend to constipation, they're not cleaning their bowels out on a daily basis, well then that then also causes that things to kind of sit in the body. Now, if the body can't get rid of, the liver can't get rid of its toxins via the bowels or the kidneys, then it needs to try and get rid of it some other way. And this is where we start to see symptoms of what we call a sluggish liver. So our biggest organ of detoxification is actually our skin. So if you're experiencing issues with your skin, in that you get skin rashes, you get breakouts, you get acne, lots of different things around the skin, then the first place we generally look is what's going on with the liver. And also some people get just an itchiness in their skin. And this happens a lot in women as they get pregnant, but it can happen at other times, but just an itchiness for no real reason. They just really don't know why you've got this itchiness. Quite often this is coming from the liver. So when we start to, other signs and symptoms of a sluggish liver is the body will start to store weight around the waist. So we start to get a thicker waist. And the reasoning for this is because as the liver isn't working properly and they've got more and more toxins being stored in the body and the cells are getting toxins into them, this is a stress on the body. So the body is now in a stress mode. And I've spoken about stress in other episodes, but when our body is stressed, we store weight, and we store weight around our waist. So we start to find that we've got more weight around our waist, and it actually sits around our organs. So we then have what is known as a fatty liver, because all this excess fat is being stored around the liver. And there's a condition known as NAFLD, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. And fatty liver can be caused by excess alcohol, and alcoholics quite often have fatty liver. But there's people that don't drink a lot who also are now starting to show fatty liver, and that's why we call it non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. And unfortunately, as women get through menopause, as they move through peri-menopause and menopause, the incidence of non-alcoholic fatty liver disease increases. It actually doubles. And the reason for this is due to the fact of the diets that we have. Too much glucose, too much sugars in our diets, which is being stored as fat around our liver. So this is a really, really big subject. I do want to try and keep it a little bit contained. So I'm not going to go into too much detail, but if you want to know more, please let me know and I'll go into a lot more detail. So going through, as I said, some of the symptoms, I've said weight around the stomach, skin issues, we start to get really, really tired. So ongoing fatigue, and that's because our body is just really, really sluggish. If the liver isn't working, it's such a large organ that if it's not working properly, we start to feel sluggish as well. And once again, because our body is kind of filling up with toxins, because even though the liver's still doing its job, it's still getting rid of toxins, it's not getting rid of everything, because phase 1 is running faster than phase 2 can get rid of everything. So as I said, fatigue, blood sugar regulation. So we have the issues with blood sugar, which can lead to insulin resistance, which also leads to us storing more fat around our waist. We have issues with our digestion, elimination. We're not eliminating our waste properly, so we're not clearing the toxins. We also are not able to get rid of excess hormones, so we start to then get an imbalance in hormones. And for some women, even though menopause is seen to be a time of when our hormones are starting to come down, sometimes they will come, our estrogen levels stay higher than our progesterone levels because the liver isn't clearing the excess estrogen. And unfortunately, what it's often not clearing are the toxic estrogens that can cause cancer, which increases your risk of things like breast cancer. So the liver isn't able to clear this excess, so we've got this imbalance in hormones, which results in different symptoms, such as hot flushing and things like that. Now, the liver also is associated with the emotion of anger. So people who've got a sluggish liver tend to be holding a lot of anger. So anger is held within the liver. And if you're finding that you have outbursts of anger for no apparent reason, or you're getting angry, well, more angry than would be expected in different situations, or you're just feeling that constant low-level anger all of the time, we've got to look at what's going on with the liver. So because energetically, anger is sitting in the liver. And with this can also create mood swings. So having a sluggish liver can result in lots of different mood swings, ups and downs all the time. Now, also, if you are waking consistently between the hours of 1 a.m. and 3 a.m., the liver is playing a role. So we have a biological clock. And this is according to TCM, Chinese medicine. We have a biological clock, and different organs peak at different times of the day in the 24-hour clock. And liver time is between 1 a.m. and 3 a.m. So if you're consistently waking at that time, this is when the liver is doing the majority of its work, but it's actually pushing a whole pile of toxins through your body. And because the body's getting more toxins, it's causing a stress, and then that triggers the adrenal glands to wake you up. So if you're finding that you wake at that time, particularly if you're waking with hot flushes, because the liver is also our center of heat. Once again, in Chinese medicine, it's a real yang organ, so it's a masculine organ. It's about producing heat. So if you're suffering a lot from night sweats, waking up in the middle of the night with hot flushes, really hot, we're looking at the liver. Also during the daytime, if you're getting flushes as well, the liver can be playing a role. The adrenal glands are also playing a role. But we've got to be looking at that the liver produces heat. Anger is heat. The liver is, it's this recycling center that's working all of the time. And if it can't get rid of its excess heat, that heat stays within the body and then it comes out. And as I said, our largest organ of detoxification is our skin. So all of that heat comes out of our skin, and we're then experiencing what you would call a hot flush or night sweats. So all this heat comes from the liver. Also, for some people who've got an issue with their liver, and their liver isn't working as optimally as it could do, they actually can have issues with exercise, in that they really, exercise really stresses them out. And it's not just, I don't want to exercise. They really can't tolerate exercise. They get really hot. They don't have the energy. And this happens for some women. And obviously, women that are trying to lose weight and they want to exercise and they can't tolerate the exercise, they can't tolerate the heat, then we're kind of in this no-win situation, because you're not moving, which means you're not shifting the fat. And it can also lead to sudden changes in blood pressure, so you can feel dizzy sometimes. Your blood pressure can be going up and down. So there's some of the common symptoms of a liver that's not working properly. And as you can see, These are very, very common symptoms that many women would be experiencing, and quite often would just be blamed on the fact as, oh, well, that's menopause, that's life. It doesn't have to be that way because there's things that we can do. But before I get into what we can do, let's have a look at what has caused this. What has got you to the stage whereby you're experiencing one or many of these symptoms which are impacting your life, and you're kind of going, well, maybe my liver isn't working as well as I could. Now, you can go and get blood tests. You can see a doctor and get blood tests to see how well your liver is working. Sometimes those blood tests won't show anything. Quite often, if they're going to show anything, they will show non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, and women will go, well, where did that come from? And they'll just be told, oh, that just happens to women as they get older. It is not just a given because you get older, you have NAFLD. So what are the causes? Now, obviously, everyone will probably know, well, alcohol plays a really big role in this because alcohol impacts our liver. Alcohol is a toxin to the body, and as soon as we take it in, the liver basically shuts down all other processing and takes the alcohol. Alcohol is a priority because alcohol can actually destroy brain cells and it can affect life. So alcohol is a priority, comes straight to the liver. The liver will process that over everything else and it will get rid of it. Now, it uses lots of nutrients to do that. Once again, zinc is one of the key nutrients that are required to detoxify alcohol from the liver. So alcohol plays a really big role. And unfortunately, women over the ages of 40 are the highest consumers of wine. So, it's a big thing for, many, many women. And I have been one of them. I know I don't drink anymore, but I have been, the woman who's come home from work, been really, really stressed and had a glass of wine or two to calm down. And I know that is very, very common. But unfortunately, that impacts your liver, particularly as you start to age. Because as you start to age, and this just happens with everyone, it happens with men and women, is that our liver starts to shrink. It's not as big and it's not as juicy. And obviously, if it's sluggish and it's got covered with fat, it can't work as well as it's supposed to. So it shrinks and it's starting to get harder because of all the fat that's being stored around it. So alcohol plays a really big role. We got to look at the pesticides and the chemicals that we have on the food. If you're not eating organic food, all foods have got pesticides and chemicals on them because they're sprayed. And things like some crops are sprayed more than others. So coffee is one of the highest sprayed crops, and many people are having coffee, non-organic coffee, 1 to 2 and maybe more every single day. So you're putting all those chemicals and pesticides into your body on a daily basis. Then we're going to look at processed foods that are made in factories, not foods that are made from nature. Foods that are made in factories that are full of preservative, additives, colorings, all these chemicals. The body was not designed to be able to process these. And whilst, if you go to the food manufacturers, they'll say chemical numbered blah, 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 XYZ, it's safe. It's been seen to be safe. But no one's ever tested whether or not chemical XYZ and chemical number WVZ, UV, and chemical MNOP, and all the chemicals together, what that load of everything that we're taking in, what that actually does to our body. That's never been tested. It can't be tested because obviously we all consume different amounts and different chemicals all of the time. But when we start to bring it all together and we get a cumulative effect because the liver isn't clearing things as quickly as we'd like because it doesn't know how to process some of these man-made chemicals, then it starts to impact our body. Then we've also got to look at the environmental toxins. Some of this stuff you can't get away from, but we've got it where we can do some work, we will. So environmental toxins is just what's going on out in the world. And depending on where you live, you may be more exposed to environmental toxins than other places. I am blessed where I live. I live right on the edge of the bush. So the trees are a really good way of detoxifying a lot of the environmental toxins. So if you can have trees around you, obviously putting live plants in your environment.
I also live near the ocean as well. So, I'm really, really lucky. But there are people who live in a city who have all of this, the fumes from the cars, the trucks, industry, all of this, all of the time. And, just walking outside, sometimes you kind of feel like, oh, I can't breathe because of the amount of chemicals that are in the environment. Then we also look at the household products that we're using, our cleaning products, what chemicals are in there, because all of that, we breathe this stuff in. We bring it in through our skin. All of this stuff the liver has to deal with. And we go back to past generations. Our liver didn't need to deal with the amount that it needs to deal with right now. Just why it's struggling. Yes, it's a great organ. It is meant to detoxify. It does its job. But it was never designed to be detoxifying as much toxicity, as much chemicals as what we are exposing our body to on a regular basis. Personal care products, the stuff that we put on our face. I'm not sure if you're aware that if you're wearing lipstick, unless you're wearing an organic brand of lipstick, that you are consuming lead. There is lead in most lipsticks. I don't wear the stuff, that's why I'm stumbling over the word. There is lead in the lipsticks, and then you're putting that on your lips and you're basically taking that in. You're actually eating it because bits of that go into your body every single day. There's also different minerals in our makeup and heavy metals in our makeup as well that you're wearing. So whatever you're putting on your body, on your skin, you've got to look at that. Also, if you are using menstrual sanitary products, tampons, quite often another highly sprayed crop is cotton. So unless you're using cotton tampons or pads, you're bringing those toxins into your body. And that area, your vaginal area, is really the mucous membranes soak everything up. So it's an area whereby everything can basically get into the body. It's a really easy access into the body because the cells are basically so soaky. I don't know what that word is. We also look at things like pharmaceutical drugs. So being on the oral contraceptive pill, that is a toxin to the body. Well, not only does it impact our hormones, and I'll cover that in another episode, but it affects the liver. It's actually one, if you ever read the insert, I don't know if they ever still have inserts in the pill, but you'll actually find that one of the side effects is liver disease. But it also takes nutrients out of our body. So the oral contraceptive pill robs our body of specific nutrients that are required for the liver to work. So many women are on the pill. Or if you have done IVF and you've had to take all of the drugs for IVF, that's also a load on your liver. So the liver's had to deal with that. Or if you're on any other type of drugs, be it pharmaceutical or recreational, they all have to be processed by the liver. So that in turn impacts the way our liver works. Also, internally from our body, if you have problems with your gut, you have what we call leaky gut, or if you've got an overgrowth of unhealthy bacteria, these bacteria create toxins. And if you've got a leaky gut, then those toxins can pass into the bloodstream and then they have to go to the liver. So our body can actually create internal toxicity based on how our digestive system is working and whether or not it's working properly, whether or not we've got a healthy gut colony growing in our digestive tract, or if it's an unhealthy one, then we're producing toxins. And if your gut wall is permeable or it's started to break down, well then these toxins can pass out of the gut and they can go into the blood and then end up in the liver, and the liver needs to deal with it. And also nutrient deficiency. So as I've mentioned a couple of times, is that we need some key nutrients for the liver to function properly. Zinc being one of them. Some of the B vitamins are also very, very essential, but we need certain nutrients to have a healthy functioning liver. B12 is very, very important. So people who are not eating animal products at all tend to have a B12 deficiency, and the liver requires the B12 for it to function properly. And there's other nutrients that are required as well. So that's all the bad news. That's the signs of the sluggish liver and what causes it. So what do we do about it? It's not all bad news, because there are things that you can do about it. There are things that you can do to change the way your liver functions, to basically help it get a little bit healthier. Now, there's lots of detox programs out there, and some of them will work, some of them are not quite so good. But I'm going to give you some things that you can do on a regular basis that will help to support your liver ongoing, because there's no point just going and doing a 10-day detox. And you go and do a 10-day detox, you do everything really, really well for that 10 days, and then after that you go back to old habits, because all you've done is, yes, you've given your liver a rest, and yes, maybe it's working a little bit better, but then you're putting all the stuff back in it, so it's just going to go back to the way it was. Whilst I do use liver detox programs, which are primarily based around food and a little bit of herbal supplements, and I'm not a big believer in doing a really big detox once a year or twice a year. I tend to believe we're better off actually supporting our liver all year round, and then if we want to put a detox on top of that, or a cleanse on top of that, then that's a benefit, but not if you're not doing it all year round. So what are some of the things that we can be doing food-wise? So let's start with food. Obviously, eating food that is close to nature. So eating foods that are grown, whole foods that nature produces. Where possible, eating organic food, because we don't want food that's got highly sprayed. Now, I understand that for some people that budgets are a really big consideration. It's like, well, I can afford to eat fruit and vegetables, but I can't afford to eat organic. So if you can afford a small amount of organic food, ones I would suggest that you have organically are things whereby when the plants are sprayed, they land on the part of the food that you eat. So things like broccoli. Broccoli is, ideally we should always be eating broccoli organic, because of all those little flower things. If that gets sprayed and it all goes in there. So if we can afford to eat broccoli, have that organic. But things like an orange, which has got a hard skin that you don't have to eat, whilst some of the chemical will get into the skin, not most of it won't. It'll stay on the skin, so you can peel it off and you can eat the fruit. So that's something that eating that non-organic will be fine. Now you can also wash some of the chemical off, the waxiness off things like your apples and your fruits and some of your veggies. Now you can do that. You can get I get a pump pack, and I can't even remember what it's called, but it's got essential oils in it. But you can simply use some vinegar, so brown vinegar or apple cider vinegar and water, and scrub the fruit or the vegetable, so till you kind of get rid of the waxiness. So the waxiness is, they put that over the fruit so that it kind of holds the pesticide. So you wash that waxiness off, and just using a brown vinegar, not the white vinegar, because the white vinegar is all chemicals, but brown vinegar or apple cider vinegar, just wash off the fruits and vegetables so you can remove the pesticides. Increase your vegetable intake. So many people are not eating enough vegetables, and we really need to be eating the vegetables, because not only does that give us the nutrients we require, if we're eating it organic, we're taking the load off our body, so we're not getting the pesticides in, but it's also got fiber. So fiber is really good for cleaning out, so it helps the bowels to actually eliminate. So once the liver's done its job, the fiber within the plant matter will actually help to get rid of that out of the body. So increasing your vegetable intake. And I know there's a bit of a push for women as they come into the next stage of life, into this stage of life, peri-menopause and menopause, is that the be all and end all is all about being on a keto diet to lose weight. But we do have to be very, very careful in not having too many fats. I'm a big believer in keto. I've used keto through the years, but I do know now that as I'm through menopause now, but I know now that having too much of the fats, particularly knowing that the liver starts to shrink and our gallbladder, which produces bile, which is required for fat breakdown, it also starts to shrink as we get older, that we can't break fats down as easily as we used to before. So we just have to be careful that we're not taking too much fats in, particularly animal fats, but having fats that come from plants, so avocados, nuts and seeds, that's okay. But once again, it's not overdoing it, not having, 6 avocados a day, use your common sense, really, but increase your vegetable intake. We really need to be making sure we're getting plenty of vegetables. The liver really loves it when we have more of a plant-based diet. So it doesn't mean we have to be, if you don't choose to be, you don't have to be vegetarian, but tending more towards vegetarian than you are towards being a meat eater. So your meat becomes your side to your dish, not your main part of the dish. Making sure you're drinking plenty of water. Really need to be drinking water, lots of water during the daytime. So 2 to 3 liters of water, and maybe even more in the hotter weather, or if you've been exercising. Now, eliminating foods there's some things here that people really aren't going to like on this list, but gluten-based foods, or wheat-based foods, your breads, your pastas, all of that. Lots of issues with that. It's not always about the gluten. We're now realizing that the chemical that is being sprayed on wheat, glyphosate, is causing a lot of issues with our digestive tract. We do struggle to break down gluten, particularly as we start to get older, but glyphosates that are sprayed on wheat's also causing a problem as well. So need to be looking at eliminating gluten. Dairy as well. Dairy is quite inflammatory, and for me, I was finding I was having big issues with dairy, causing me lots and lots of joint pain, and I had to completely drop all dairy out. I'm not a big dairy, I don't drink milk, I don't have cow's milk, but I did like cheese, and that was pretty hard for me to drop that out, but I did have to reduce the pain. Now I have a little bit, and I'm not getting the pain because I've brought the inflammation down. Sugar. Processed sugar, so your sugary foods, all that, having sugar that's within fruits, that's okay because it's got the fiber in it, and the fiber will slow the absorption of sugar down. But we do have to be careful of sugar, particularly if you're holding weight around your waist and you've got insulin resistance. Sugar, we've got to be very, very careful of that. And there is still a limiting of some of the fruits, and you need to be going more towards vegetables rather than fruits. Alcohol. And I know, sorry, for those of you who love your glass of wine, when we're talking about the liver, if you're experiencing symptoms of a fatty liver, if you're getting hot flushes, you're getting lots and lots of heat, you've got issues with your skin, fatigue, all the things that I spoke about before, got anger coming up, mood swings coming up, alcohol, has to go. And it doesn't have to go forever, but it has to go for long enough for your liver to actually start to return to some of its normal functioning. I stopped drinking alcohol at the end of last year because, and I wasn't drinking a lot. I only used to have I'd have 1 glass with dinner on a Saturday night, and I go half and half. So I'd fill my glass up with half with wine and half with mineral water, and I just used to keep topping it up with mineral water. So I wasn't drinking a lot of wine. Okay, and if I went out, sometimes I would have a couple of glasses of champagne, but I was still in constant pain, and despite doing everything else with my diet, removing everything from my diet, dairy, all of it, I was in constant pain. I had fibromyalgia type pain all of the time. So I decided that I was just going to cut out the alcohol completely, 100%. And I have to tell you that within 2 weeks of doing that, all of my pain was gone, all of my stiffness was gone. I could move, it was just so different. So I actually haven't had anything to drink in now where we are. I haven't had anything to drink in 10 months, and I can move. I have no pain, and it was amazing. It was just amazing the amount of difference just that 1 glass of wine was having to my body. Now, does that mean I will never drink again? No, maybe not. But when I'm going to Europe next year, possibly when I'm over, in France, I might have some wine. The wines in Europe are very different to the wines here in Australia. Wines here in Australia are very much lots and lots of chemicals, and I don't know if that's playing a big role as well, because we've also got to look at the preservatives and the chemicals that are in the wine. So when I go to Europe, maybe I might experiment to see what happens, see whether or not I'm okay with having wine over there. But I've also made sure my liver's had quite a long rest by then from alcohol, and I do all these other things that I'm talking to you about as well. Well, most of them. Caffeine also plays a role. As I mentioned before, coffee is one of the highest sprayed crops. So organic, if you're going to have coffee, go organic. But caffeine does put a load on the liver. It stimulates the liver. We actually, when we want to know whether or not phase 2 detoxification pathways are working, one of the things we do is we actually use caffeine to actually see how well the liver is working, because we know that it actually does activate the liver. So, and so one cup of coffee, organic coffee a day is probably not a big deal. Don't have it with milk, dairy milk. Have it with a different type of milk. But if you're having 5-6 cups of coffee, you need to be looking at why you need that many cups of coffee, and to what the impact that's having on your liver. Also, I've already mentioned this, processed foods, high in chemicals, additives, and also red meats. We need to be reducing red meats. If you are a meat eater, you don't have to completely eliminate red meats. White meats are better. They have less of a load on the liver, but red meats can be a little bit inflammatory. So you just really need to see what your body can take. But as I mentioned before, you use the meat more as a side to a vegetable dish, rather than the meat being the main and the salad or vegetable being the side. So just need to have a little bit less, and maybe try having some plant-based only meals a couple of times during the week, and just see how your body responds. Some bodies do require more meat than others, and I don't talk about that in personalized health in another podcast. I'll go into that in a little bit more detail, but listen to your body on that one. Reduce the red meat, white meat, so chicken, so long as it's organic, and fish, so long as, once again, it's a river-based fish and not full of toxins. See how much, there's just so much stuff that's being done to our food, and it's impacting our health. Also, other ways to support the liver is to reduce your chemical-based cleaners and your personal care. Now, there are plenty of options out there for non-chemical based cleaners. Adobe is a good one, ADOBE. They make a really good range of non-chemical cleaners, but you could just go for lemon juice and vinegar and water there, and bicarb of soda. They're the easiest, and some essential oils. Easy way to clean using some really non-toxic ingredients. And personal care products, once again, using essential oils, using creams that aren't full of all these different chemicals. And unfortunately, within the beauty industry, they don't have to tell you what's in their products. Their labeling laws are not that good. So there's lots of stuff in their products that you don't know. So go to brands that you trust. I personally love 28, which, if you're looking for it, is 20 as in spell the word out, TWENTY, and the number 8.com. I'll put the link in the show notes. But they make some really beautiful skin creams. It's an essential oil company, aromatherapy company, created by a qualified aromatherapist. Beautiful, top quality skincare products. So if you're looking for something to replace what you're using now, look at that. What else can we do? There are some herbs that are really good for supporting the liver. Things like St. Mary's thistle is a really great liver herb. Dandelion root, turmeric. So you can get liver teas, and if they've got those herbs in them, they may have a few other herbs in it as well, then it's a really good tea. So you can replace maybe one of your coffees with a herbal tea, a liver cleanse tea, or have a dandelion root. They call them coffees, but it's not a coffee. But some people will replace dandelion root with the coffee, because it gives it does give a little bit of a lift. It's not like caffeine, but you could use that as well. Some foods that are great for supporting the liver: broccoli is really good for supporting the liver. Onion and garlic, leafy greens, and globe artichoke, all great liver foods. But really, any food that comes from nature is always going to have a really great impact on the liver. When we're looking at the emotional, as I said, the fatty liver, the liver is where we hold the emotion of anger. So we've got to look at how can we process our anger in ways that we no longer need to hold on to it. How do we reduce that? So, find ways to process the anger, whatever it is, whether or not that's journaling, whether or not it's addressing what's causing your anger. You may need to be doing some deeper emotional work. I use kinesiology. If you want to talk to me a little bit about that, please feel free to contact me. But, find ways to process your anger. Avoid the toxic relationships. The relationships, avoid people that trigger you until you can work through what the triggers are. But if someone triggers you, try to avoid them, because there's no point putting yourself into a situation whereby you're being triggered to anger all of the time. And if you can't avoid that situation, try to be aware of how you are reacting. Try to be aware of your reactions and try to catch them before they come out. And rather than speaking out the words, don't suppress them either, because we don't want to suppress them, but find a different way to take them out. And as I said, journaling is one way of doing that. I place my hand on my heart and I use the words infinite love and gratitude until I calm down. Whatever it is for you, you find a way to process what's going on so that you're not in this state of being angry all the time. But guaranteed, the more work you do to support your liver, the anger will start to come down and you will get less triggered. So there's a physical component to what's going on. So we do need to address the physical, but we also need to address the emotional. What is it? Why does this situation cause you to feel angry, and what can you do about that? So that is the end of this conversation that I'm having all about liver. Now, hopefully that's answered a few questions for you. Hopefully it's a little bit clearer for you. If you would like to know anything more, if you've got any questions, few places you can find me. Either pop over to my Facebook page, which is Angela Counsel. Feel free to email me, angela@angelacounsel.com. I'm also on Instagram at Angela Counsel. You can find me most places at Angela Counsel. But if you've got more questions, or if you think that you've got issues and there's a sign that your liver's not working as well as it could do, and you would like to do some work around correcting that, or you'd like a little bit more information, feel free, go over to my Facebook page, as I said, at Angela Counsel. Pop over to the appointments and make an appointment for a complimentary discovery call with me. 30 minutes, and I'll have a bit of a chat to you, and I'll just learn a little bit about what's going on with you, and I'll give you some good tips on what you can do, and also share with you how, if you want to take the next step and work with me further, how you can do that as well. Now, before I go, I would please, number one, I want to thank you for listening today, but two, please share this episode with a friend. If you've got someone who you think may have issues with their liver, or is experiencing different symptoms, please feel free to share this episode, because the more people that know this stuff, the more people who take control of their health, the better we're all going to be. I want to share this out to the world. I want as many people as possible to know that they can take control of their health, that they just don't have to give up and think this is just the way it is. There's nothing I can do with it. The doctor's just said, here, take a pill. There is so much you can do. This time of life for you is a time of change. Your body is changing. Your hormones are changing. The world is changing. But like the caterpillar that turns through mush to become into a butterfly, this is your time for transformation. This is the time for you to truly step into who you are and to own all of you at a physical, emotional, and spiritual level. And that's it from me today, and from my heart to yours, infinite love and gratitude. And I'll be back next week with another Wise Women's Conversation. Bye for now.